I hate to be the old man yelling at a cloud, but I feel like we are in this just absolutely terrible age for intellectual properties and movies and TV shows being made where just everything is regurgitation. And I didn't feel like I would be that guy until today. I saw a tweet that they're making a sequel to Happy Gilmore for Netflix, like with Adam Sandler tagged in it and everything, like from the Netflix official account. Like they're 10 years late on this, at least
Yeah,
on this
I
sequel.
think
And like, I don't have any interest in anything Batman has made in years. I don't think. I
that's
could
a.
be wrong,
I mean,
but I feel like he's made some. Maybe I'm probably wrong, but there's just
uncut
been so
gems.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's been so much crap put out there that I'm like, I don't think he's still got his fastball for Happy Gilmore.
he definitely does it. What made Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison and everything leading up to I think his last good movie was Big Daddy. And then after
Yeah.
that, there was the downward slope. And that is because he got Final Cut. That is when Happy Madison Productions really took over and he was in charge of everything. And so once mommy and daddy left the studio and Adam was the big boy in charge, it kind of got worse.
Well, welcome back to the Working on the Dad Pod. I'm Alex. With me, as always, is Ethan, who may have thought he was introing the episode because we didn't discuss who was going to do it beforehand. It looked like he was about to take a breath, but I beat him to it.
You did.
Today, we are working on entertainment. This is a bit of a quick episode. We're recording this right after we recorded the episode that you will hear 2 weeks before this about the dad habits. Because Ethan is traveling today.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
So if you are joining us and you would like to keep on top of our travel schedules as well as episodes and other fun things, make sure you're liked and subscribed to us on YouTube. You like our videos, you comment on them, and find us on all the socials. We're on most of all the platforms. Can't guarantee we're on every one, but you can find them all at workingondadpod.com, as well as all of our episode videos and everything. Maybe one day some merch. Who knows? Ethan, how you doing? Got any good merch ideas?
I do, but not ready to share because
they're too big. They're too big. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag. We couldn't handle the pre-orders if we did.
No.
Yeah.
So thanks for accommodating my need for this advanced episode. As our loyal listeners know, we do this sometimes. We want to make sure you're always provided with content.
We travel and we don't stay glued to these microphones.
That's true. So we do things in advance because we don't procrastinate, except we do. Anyway, I did still want to share a little bit of a story that I didn't say when you'd be watching the dad habits in real time, but 2 days ago, it was raining. No, yesterday, because I was going into the office. Yesterday was a Wednesday, and it was raining. And when I walk the girls to preschool and it rains, that means it's one hand on the double stroller, one hand on the umbrella. So I was mentally preparing for that. But I call yesterday the day of the 3 tumbles. My almost 2-year-old, it started with tumble number 1, where she was on her changing table. I had just gotten her new diaper on. I just got her pants on. I had my hand on her leg. And for some reason, she lost control of her upper body and kind of leaned over and fell off of the changing table. I still held her, so she didn't actually fall, but she was very unhappy. I grabbed her, I hugged her, and I said, "Was that a little scary?" And she goes, "Yes." And then she forgot about it, which was great. Then, fast forward about a half hour, and I am grabbing my wallet, my keys, my mask for the metro and for in my office. And while I'm looking away, there's 3 steps that go from the foyer to the garage, and she, the 20-month-old, fell again. I missed it. Once I saw that she was okay, I laughed because it was kind of funny because she was holding a yogurt pouch and actually sprayed herself in the face as a result of the fall. So that was pretty funny. And then the reason this is called the day of 3 tumbles is in the double stroller, which I had mentioned. It's raining. I'm holding an umbrella. I'm only going one-handed. My older daughter, the almost 5-year-old, is in the front. She no longer straps herself in. Because I was left-handing and wasn't paying attention, I accidentally hit the curb in front of the townhouse mailboxes instead of going up just my neighbor's dirt. And she, in holding a granola bar and a graham cracker, flew forward and saved her food, but landed on the sidewalk. She was totally fine, but she was very much embarrassed. There was only just a little bit of wet dirt on her knees. Well, she was wearing pants anyway. But yeah, it was the morning of 3 tumbles, and my wife wasn't thrilled, but everybody's fine. And that's just what I wanted to share for all y'all.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That is awesome. For me, it's been an interesting week because, as you're listening to this is the week after my wife and daughter went to Paris, and my son was sick the week beforehand, and my daughter got it and was out Monday and Tuesday of the school week. But one sort of unintended side effect is my daughter's gotten some like swelling in her ear. And I mean, this isn't going to be some like medical back and forth about a sick kid, but like it made her hard of hearing for like a day. And so for the entire day, all she was doing was like mumbling, like really low where you could barely hear her and couldn't understand. And then if you'd ask her to repeat herself, she would shriek at you and just have like absolutely no volume control, but like also couldn't hear half of what you were saying. And so we kind of spent the whole day just like being really angry at her and her being really angry at us because like she couldn't hear us the first, second, or third times. And then we'd yell at her and she'd be like, "Why are you yelling at me?"
Is she good now? Or is this just kind of a one-day
she's
thing?
fine.
Okay.
She's fine.
Right.
It was just like, and it was like only on one side and like all that kind of stuff. And she's fine now, but it was just, it was one of those things that we were keeping an eye on, but it was kind of hilarious in retrospect. I don't have a long one, but I figured that was
no, that was funny.
Yeah, that's what I got. So
cool.
Ethan, why don't you introduce? I did not introduce the topic effectively for tonight.
Yeah, so we called this episode Working on Entertainment, and it is more about what's the content we're consuming. We thought working on content consumption just sounded too sustainability environmental, when really we're just talking about what is we're watching, we're reading, what are we doing for fun. And I wanted to break it down into 3 topics. What are we doing with ourselves? What are we doing with our spouse? And what are we doing with our kids? And so, mine is more obviously visual content focused. So I'm going to start with recently, as in I didn't realize I finished, but I finished 2 days ago the first season of Severance on Apple TV Plus. And for those of you who haven't watched it, it stars Adam Scott, who got famous from Parks and Rec. It's directed by Ben Stiller. And the premise is there's a company in this, I think it's Minnesota. And what they do is there's a set of employees who work on what they call the severed floor. And you learn very early in the first episode that people who work there literally get their brain severed into 2 parts. It's their work self, which they refer to as their innie, and their normal self, which is their outie. So they're not belly buttons. They're still people. And basically, the innie's life is everything that just happens in the office. They don't experience sleep. They don't really know anything because they basically wake up in innie form the moment they get to the building and onto their floor. And then the outie lives their life never able to talk about work. And granted, the show's a thriller. There's a lot more to it than what I said. I don't want to spoil anything. I want you all to watch. But the idea of never being able to talk about work and having my job severed away, and just somebody goes, "How's work?" And I say, "I don't know." And then I get to talk about stuff that actually sounds fun. It's the idea sounds pretty cool.
Sounds good in theory.
Right, correct. Obviously, the
I
show
think I could pull it off. I think you would. I don't know if you would be miserable, but you would feel excluded as heck in DC. That like every
Sure.
time I have gone to DC and like we've gone out for drinks or something, that it's just like you describe the person and then you describe how they are connected to the federal government, whether they are working directly for it, whether they're working in the legislative branch, whether they're working for a consultant, whether they're working for an NGO, like no matter what they're doing, you describe like how they are connected to Capitol Hill. And so like I struggle a little bit with how you would actually pull that off, but I could be wrong.
Well, I guess that's why it does take place in like a small town Minnesota kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess.
You know,
I guess.
yeah. Maybe they thought about that. Maybe they, when writing the show, figured it could never work in a major city.
Yeah.
With a big industry. Anyway, that's what I'm doing for me, or I've just finished doing for me.
Yeah. So I will say that for me, one of the shows that I recently got into while my wife was in Paris, and I watched most of it, just had it going while I was like picking up the house, doing chores or whatever after kiddo had gone to bed, is Welcome to Wrexham. Which, if you don't know what that is a documentary about Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia buying a Welsh football team that is in the 5th division of English football, which is basically one level above semi-pro. And they were a proud team that used to be as high as the Championship, which is the level right below the Premier League. And like they have a 150, 180-year-old stadium that's still in existence, all that stuff. It's a good show. I like it. It's a reality show. If you've watched Ted Lasso, I get very similar vibes from it for a variety of reasons. Like the show is not solely focused on Reynolds and McElhenney. It does, a lot of the main characters are Wrexham residents. Wrexham is the town. It's also the name of the club, but it focuses on their life and how their life has been connected to the club, and how, spoiler alert, because you can literally Google this team's results, like as the team achieves more results with this influx of cash, how it affects and changes and betters the lives of the town and the people around it. And so it became much more than like, say, The Last Dance or something, which is just like an awesome sports documentary. This is definitely sports, but also people focused. And so, you know, I like it, and yeah, would recommend.
Yeah, I've heard it's great. I did see that, you know, all the publicity is actually also helping the team. Aren't they?
And, they go into a lot of like sort of behind the scenes of like the publicity is helping the team, but we're using it as like this is so we don't lose $250,000. If we post enough TikToks and do enough brand hawking at the stadium, then we don't lose $250,000 that we were trying to invest to like make it better, kind of thing.
Because weren't they just promoted to League One, which is the one right below Championship, I think?
Correct. So that does spoil it. They started 2 leagues below that in the first season of them owning the team. 3 seasons into ownership, they are now 2 leagues up, which required them to finish in the top 2 of the 5th tier and then in the top 4 of the 4th tier.
Well, I do apologize for the spoil, but 2 minutes ago you did tell people to Google it, which would in fact is spoiled.
Sure. In the option if they wanted to.
Sure.
I will say I'm the type of person that will sometimes Google that kind of thing as I'm watching something like that, especially alone.
Sure.
But yeah, I know not everybody's like that. All right.
Right.
Next.
So I'm gonna go next with what we're watching as a family, the content we consume as a family, and I'm going to answer this in 2 parts. Well, there's a preamble. So one of my the side effects of my daughter's tornado phase is that if we watch something and we tell her it's only one episode or this amount of time, like until dinner, and she says she understands, and then a lot of times she doesn't, and the result is we can't really watch stuff with her because we've had to have the TV off for about a week around her, just in general.
Sure.
But when we do watch stuff as a family, I've mentioned before, we've started doing Family Bluey, where we will only watch new episodes if all four of us are together. If she wants to watch with one of her grandparents, or if I'm not home or my wife's not home and we are watching as 3 instead of 4, there are no new episodes. We are taking it very seriously, this is a family show, and it has been a lot of fun. For those of you who may not have heard us talk about it before, Bluey is about a family of dogs in Australia. It's great. The episodes are about 10 minutes long. The dad should have been on Alex's dad draft. It was a horrible omission on his part. I had not been introduced to him yet, so it's entirely Alex's fault that he was not included. But he's great, and dad goals for sure. And then as far as non-visual, we do utilize our ECHO Amazon product a lot for listening to music as a family. So that's pretty much something I'd say in total, we're probably looking at about 30 minutes of music on weekdays and cumulatively, and then usually about an hour over the weekend. So
Well, for us on the music front, unsurprisingly, there's been a lot of Taylor Swift lately in the house. Pre and post the girls going to the concert.
Sure.
We have not of late been doing a lot of family TV watching. We usually a lot of times we'll do like a family movie night, but half the time we're doing a family movie night, it's like picking a kid's Disney movie or something. And if my wife and I have seen it, then we're kind of like doing chores in the background, and it's not always this like family thing. And like usually we'll just like set the kids up with like a big cutting board full of like snacks so that they can just like, that can be their dinner, and it just kind of becomes like an easier way to parent. And but like you guys, it's like you have to do X, Y, and Z to get a movie night. If you're not willing to, do cleanup and like get on your pajamas and get your hair brushed for bed for my daughter. Because she's got like waist length hair, and so it's a to-do to brush it. But she does not ever want it cut. And I'm like, Godspeed, girlfriend. That seems like too much for me. So we don't have a lot of like TV shows or anything that we have appointment viewing. And for the next segment, this will ring true as well. Just because I feel like a lot of times outside of a few shows that I tend to maybe pick up and watch when I have some free time, a lot more of the time when I have the TV on, I'm doing sports. So less shows that we watch as a family for sure. But I definitely will sit down and find myself when the kids are doing screen time and watching Bluey. I definitely find myself stopping and watching a lot more than when they're watching something else. Like recently they've gotten really into a show on Disney Plus called Fancy Nancy, and it's perfectly mediocre as shows go. But like if after watching Bluey, when you watch other kid shows and like the conflicts and complications and emotions are so telegraphed and like abrupt and stated, and this isn't picking on this show, it goes for every show almost every show, you're just like, okay, this is like exhausting how simplified this is. And like, of course it's not meant for me. I'm not like complaining that like, oh, this is poor quality television, but just like, it's not made for me. Where Bluey, I kind of feel like does that thing that very few shows are able to do, which is just like, it's how I remember Shrek. The first time I saw Shrek, I was in the theater with my dad, and I thought it was hilarious because all of the like elementary school jokes I thought were funny. And then there was some like higher level stuff going on that my dad thought was hilarious. Right. And so that sort of same effect, I think, happens with Bluey, less comedically, but still somewhat funny, but just like, there's some stuff that parents can relate to here. and some stuff for the kids. Where like in
Absolutely.
a lot of kid shows, the parents just feel like caricatures of what mom and dad are.
Mm-hmm.
Just supporting characters for the main character kid.
Yeah, I feel that. And I think that's what makes a good family show, when it hits on all the levels.
Sure.
Same thing with the movie. Yeah, so the third and final segment I was going to I mentioned was, what are you and your spouse watching? So, we are recording on Thursday, May 16th, which is actually the day that Bridgerton season 3 came out. So my wife was pretty upset that we were recording tonight, because she does want to watch that. So that will be my answer, probably starting tomorrow, unless we have the energy to start one, in the next 10 minutes at 10:30 p.m. We are in the middle of Yellow Jackets season 2. It's been a long road for us. We've taken a long break for us on that one, but we've decided we wanted to finish it. We, as a couple, really love the show Outlander, which, if you haven't heard of it, is on Starz. It's a very graphic show, but we are behind on the newest season. But my wife has decided she wants us to wait until the second half. It's one of those situations that, because of COVID, they shot half the season, then we'll do. So, she's going to want to binge it. So we'll do that. But my wife has gotten into the book series called A Court of Thorn and Roses. That is the first book in that series. I forget what the whole series is called, but she very much wants me to read it. I have not been good at reading anything longer than, a sports article. I listen to a lot of podcasts, probably about 10 or so I'm subscribed to, that I consider like appointment listening. But I did download the first half of that book on Hoopla, but I downloaded and if you're unfamiliar with Hoopla, it's an app for that has basically everything. You can read on it, you can listen. It's partnership with all the libraries, but one of the things they do is a graphic adaptation. So instead of getting an audiobook, I have downloaded, and I haven't started it yet, but they have different actors doing the different. Well, I only downloaded it like 3 hours ago, and I
know my wife has listened to all of Outlander and read and listened to all of the Court of Thorn books. Like, I know the context of this. I call it her literature smut. And so when you're I wanted the graphic version of fairies having sex, I'm like, okay.
That's what I meant. When I say it's a graphic adaptation, I think that's the terminology they're using for, instead of an audiobook, they're hiring different actors for all the different voices. They're playing music in the background. It is basically, so
I got you.
Yeah, it's a whole production. So I'm excited to start it, because it's been a long time since I've actually made it through an audiobook or a regular book. So I'm hoping that this keeps me entertained. I'm not proud of what I'm saying right now. I need to read.
No, because like I'm laughing at all this, and maybe my answer is like, I need to lighten up and join the fray. I've seen bits and pieces of Bridgerton and Outlander, and I have been asked to read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I got maybe 100 pages in, and I was just like, nothing's happened. And she's like, it picks up here, and then again in like book, like the last half of book 2, and I'm like,
yeah, I heard the same thing.
my wife's an English major. I'm like, you got the patience for this? Like, not for me. Like, and it's just also, it wasn't my cup of tea content wise. I'm not shaming anybody for watching it, but like, those are shows that my wife watches alone, Outlander and Bridgerton.
Sure.
But I will say, for all the guys out there that don't want to watch it, I have found like the sexual nature content of the show can increase libido in the surrounding populations.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I will say though, I am, I am very interested in how I hope I'm saying it right, the graphic adaptation experience is, just in terms of listening to the whole production. I know, in addition to my wife actually listens to a lot of them. She actually listened to a book written by Michael Schur. I think it's called More Perfect.
Okay.
And Kristen Bell, basically all of the people who starred in his show The Good Place all signed up to read it. So if you like The Good Place and you like the guy that plays Chidi,
I really want to hear those voices.
Yeah, that's what you're going to get.
Nothing to do with that show except just to hear those voices communicate.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, that's our couples.
Yeah, I use the Libby app for audiobooks. That's the one synced to our library.
Yep.
And
so
we also got
Hoopla and Libby do work together.
Nice. We also found a hack that the Broward County Library does not require you to be a Broward County resident, but only a Florida resident. So I have the Martin County and the Broward County library cards in the thing, and that way I can rent from multiple places. But I hear you on that. There are some, because my personal audio / book, I would sometimes read and sometimes listen and sometimes do a combination of both. For the Jack Reacher books. And I had mentioned this a while back as just a piece of content that I was reading. And these are definitely more male driven books, a little more American James Bond meets a little, big imposing 6'5", 250-pound guy made out of muscle. And the guy that's tasked to read that and the voice and do this sort of imposing, but measured and calm voice is also doing the female damsel in distress voices, and you're okay, deep throated, big throated guy here is not, doing a little girl justice when he tries to do her voice, and you're just okay, I could see the value add in some better readers. But I will say, if you get too attached to one style, then you'll quickly learn that not every book gets the same amount of treatment or the same amount of interest. But you picked a couple of best-selling series, so I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to find.
Yeah, I will say when I did listen, 2012 was the year of many audiobooks. I think I listened to 15, and I did find that women do better at men's voices than men do at women's voices when they're trying to get into character. So
yeah, it depends. It depends on the reader, but so to answer the question though of what my wife and I are watching together, it's not really a lot right now is the honest answer. Just because of time, and half the time we're listening to audiobooks, like I mentioned, or might have sports on in the background while we're washing dishes, cleaning the litter box, doing those kinds of things. And then we just kind of like to sit and talk a little bit, but she kind of goes to bed pretty early because she finds that she works really well in the mornings on anything she has to do in front of the computer. And I'm kind of the opposite, where this tends to be my time to shine. So we don't have as much overlap TV viewing time, but we will find time for the things that are important. We've had appointment viewing around what's the zombie show on HBO these days?
It's Last of Us.
Yeah, Last of Us. House of the Dragon's coming out this summer. That'll probably be another one that was previously on our appointment viewing. Game of Thrones was up there for obvious reasons when you connect those two series. Ted Lasso was on there. And so we definitely have some that we cycle through. We used to both be big on the Marvel stuff, but obviously Marvel has not been producing as much content of late. And my wife just sort of was I'm done with this. This is getting too much.
We're pretty behind on Marvel.
Yeah. And which whatever, but so we don't have a lot at present, but I can see a couple things on the horizon. And then what you and I watched together this summer will be the first of a 3-part release of the final season of Cobra Kai.
Yes, for sure. I can't wait for that.
Parts 5 episodes at a time, months apart. I'm
that's tough.
I used to just crush my sleep cycle and binge all the episodes the day it released and then go to bed at 2 a.m. regretting life.
Yep. Yeah, that is. I think I've said this to you before. Cobra Kai is not the best show on TV by any means, but it is the most fun show. When I watch Cobra Kai, I am usually at my happiest.
It is also, I think the reason I like it so much is not just because I think it is a genuinely good show. I'm not going to put it in some pantheon with Breaking Bad
Sure.
or something like
Right.
that, or on some Mount Rushmore, but I think it's a legitimately good show. But I think the fact is, like, when you look at the original source material and like how many products have come out of the Karate Kid franchise, I think like universally can be agreed that only the original Karate Kid movie before this series was like universally lauded as good, right?
Mhm.
People may be fans of some of the other movies, but I'm just like, Cobra Kai has no business being as good as it is. And I
Yeah.
think that's what
Yeah.
amazes me is I'm just like, this is not some amazing deep well of like
Right.
content that they're drawing from, like creating these stories and these relationships and making me care about it
Mhm.
without
And
getting too cartoonish,
yeah,
but keeping
they
80s vibes is just, it's a masterstroke.
yeah,
Um,
it punches so high above its weight class.
yeah.
The way they weave in just the nobody characters from the 3 movies they haven't
I mean, if you
they
told
haven't
me
dove
that
into
like
like the Hillary Swank universe
literally
yet.
the prototype 80s villain in Johnny,
Yeah.
that you would like feel for him on an emotional level multiple times a
Right.
season, you're just like, what the hell? How do they do
Oh
that?
yeah.
You're like,
Yeah. It did.
this was the embodiment of evil in my childhood.
Yeah, and it's so good. And I did really like Karate Kid Part 2. I did like that movie.
Sure.
And so what they've done with Chosen and that and everything in Okinawa is great. And then, the only good thing about Karate Kid 3 was Terry Silver as the villain, because you were just like, who is this guy? What is this thing? And then the way they have just expanded on him is just amazing
Yeah.
as a villain.
And I
So,
think it's also the fact, it's not just the fact of the source material, but like when you look at most of the people that have gone through the Karate Kid franchise, it's like there are a bunch of nobodies on their like career
yeah,
resume. Like Ralph Macchio is like an icon, but only because of this role, only
right.
because of this character. And like there are very few people, with the exception of Hilary Swank, who like
Mhm.
have done anything of note outside of this franchise, and yet they come back to this thing and
Yeah.
they all have their fastball, and you're just like, how? How
Yeah,
does this work?
because they're where they're meant to be.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
truly
It's
it.
their one thing.
Yeah.
It's their
Yeah.
one thing. Very particular
Yeah.
set of skills.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. So I am very excited for that. Thank you for reminding me. And I will say there was now that I was reminded of appointment viewing. I look forward to The Boys coming back. That's appointment viewing for my wife and I. We do love that show on Amazon Prime.
I don't think my wife could
And
handle The Boys. I
oh
think
yeah,
she would get too squeamish
yeah,
real quick.
it's
I
a
mean,
bit,
shoot, the
but
opening scene of the very first
uh,
episode.
yeah. And the opening scene of season 3
Sure. I mean, that's
was
worse, but like
what?
the
Yeah,
first one just
that was what?
like
Yeah.
it brings to your attention. Sorry, I have a rogue seat cushion that's
No,
doing all
you're
sorts
good.
of places. Um,
But my wife and I did treat on Disney Plus the Percy Jackson show as appointment viewing. It's pretty good even for a kid show.
yeah. You guys have a much longer list than me. I haven't
We do.
sniffed that one. I've but yeah, I mean
Yeah.
there's definitely some good stuff out there. I've seen The Boys. I don't think my wife would like it. You
Mhm.
know, I'm looking forward to Stranger Things coming back. You know, there's several of
Yeah.
those series that you're like, all right, you know, I'm ready for them to sort of get to the end game because I've been invested for so long, and because of
Mhm.
COVID and writer strikes and just the way studios work today, where it's just like you're talking about Severance and you had just started watching it, and I'm like, I feel like I watched that thing over a calendar year ago, which I very well may have. And then when you mentioned it, I looked when season 2 might come, and they're like,
Yeah.
maybe 2025, and I'm just like,
I know.
I feel like my brain's been severed from like when I watched that
Yeah.
show, and I don't remember
So,
what the heck happened. And I'm gonna have to watch some YouTuber do a 30-minute recap
so
so I don't have to rewatch the
right.
whole first season just
So,
to understand the twists and turns.
so I was genuinely sad because I did not realize I had watched the finale, and I went to bed being
I hate that.
thinking
I hate that when you're streaming on a
yeah,
streaming service
yeah,
and so you can't like mentally prepare, and then it just
yeah,
ends and you're just like,
yeah. No,
was that the last episode of the season?
yeah, no, I didn't know that. I went to bed, and then yesterday my wife was going to bed, and I said, I gotta keep watching Severance. And I went to continue watching on Apple TV Plus, and it wasn't there. I'm thinking, what the hell happened? Because I had finished it, and then I too didn't realize that season 2 had not yet come out.
It didn't just disrupt what you thought you were going to watch at that moment. Like, it disrupted your whole session, because like I was referencing a session where like you get to the end of the episode and you're trying to do another and you can't scratch that itch. But like, no, you're like, I'm going to sit down. I got the house to myself. Wife's going to bed. I'm going to watch this. Ruined.
Yeah, completely. It was very sad. But that show is so good. So good.
Yeah. No, it's very good. There's a lot of good stuff going out there. If you guys have a chance to watch it, I've seen Yellow Jackets is another good one. I've seen that one. My wife, again, would have no interest.
The episode we watched yesterday was tough. Middle of season 2. But for those of you listening, the millions of you listening, if you have recommendations for Alex and I, please let us know. I'm always down for more content, and maybe we can get a Working on the Dad Pod watch content club going. For all you out there, we can have monthly special episodes where we go live.
We'll make it an audiobook, so Ethan has to actually listen to completion.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
No Working on the Dad Bod this time, because this check-in is 2 weeks old. But thank you, guys.
But again, thanks for coming. You're obviously listening to this, but I am hopefully enjoying myself on the beach with another family. We are doing a 2-family.
I thought you were leaving your
best friends
behind and like taking for a test.
Secret. I have a second family, and I'm going on a trip with them. The ones I live with here, they think it's a business trip.
He publicly posts to YouTube.
Yeah. But it's me. My wife and I are really close with our older daughter's friends' parents. So it's 2 families of 4, and we're going for it. So splitting an Airbnb. We're gonna see what happens.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. You should also like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts to watch and listen. Multiple content streams. Please check us out at workingondadpod.com. And I'm gonna stop talking.
Thanks for working on the Dad Pod with us. Any resources that we mentioned during the show will be in the show notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to talk with us, the best place is in the comments on YouTube. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Working on the Dad Pod, and on Twitter at Working on Dad Pod. Following and subscribing is always appreciated. Please rate and review us. That helps get the show to new people. And if you know a dad who would enjoy our show, sharing it with them is a huge help to them and us. Have a great week.
I friggin' nailed that.